Welcome to another interesting conversation with Joe Reagan's Conversation. And Joe, you know what? I understand that you want to talk about blasting off. Have I got that correct? Have I got that really correct?
Nothing in politics is ever really a blast off. It's more one of
Oh,
that. It's like watching a C-5 take off. Like you really look at
okay.
this thing. It's like you want to use every bit of runway you have
Okay.
to
Well,
get going up in the air.
hang on a second here.
We have sound effects now. Oh, good.
We're blasting off.
We've got Oh, good. That's what we were missing. That's what this was missing, was sound effects. The Well, as for some time, obviously, I think everyone that's been listening to this knows that for some time I've been running doing the second run for Congress here, and but it is a good opportunity because we come towards the end of summer. On August 22nd, we have what we'll call the formal launch of the 2026 campaign to defeat Jeff Crank, and it's going to be at the Cottonwood Center downtown, 6 to 8 p.m. August 22nd. And I don't know if you know where the Cottonwood Center for the Arts is, Gary.
Yep, I do. It's on one of them streets downtown.
Yes, it is. More importantly, do you know what it's across the street from?
Uh, I think they shut that house down.
It's well, whatever is happening in the house you're thinking about is probably more productive than what's happening in the office that I'm thinking about, which is Jeff Crank's office is
Well, I
actually
was
right across the
right.
street. Yeah, he's at the
I was
Catalyst Center.
right. You
Yeah.
know,
I actually have a lot of fun. So if you ever are protesting down in front of Jeff's office, I usually, I have an office down there as well. And so if I see people down there, I usually try and get out there, say hello, introduce myself, to anyone that's protesting Jeff Crank in front of his office. It's led to some very interesting conversations along the way. But I can think of nothing better. Not only, John Corey and the team at the Cottonwood Center have been great to be able to help us with the space and get everything set up. But it should be great. We've already got probably close to 200 folks that are planning on attending. So it should be a good opportunity really to bring some energy to the campaign. You know, if you haven't gotten a phone call from me yet, it's probably because you didn't answer it. But I've been doing probably close to 200 phone calls a day to donors, to Democrats in town, keeping everything really local, trying to keep this at a grassroots level. Because at the end of the day, I think that the National Democratic Party is they are positioned to screw this one up too. So we're trying to keep our distance from the DC consultant class that has no clue what's going on in this world, and
well,
really trying to connect with folks as locally as much as possible.
well,
And
what I've been doing, without your permission, I've been giving Congressman Ro
yeah,
Khanna, your podcast, along with a little note saying, "How about a helping hand here?" And also, there's another outfit out in California, Democratic Party committee that's out there that I've been, poking at them a little bit
yeah.
because to me, this is just like fertilizer. You got to spread it around. I mean, you just can't stay with the same old. And I don't think the consultants from DC are the way to go either. So,
No, and unfortunately, the reality with some of these groups that will do endorsements and stuff like that is that the endorsements are not based on any viability assessments or anything like that. It comes down to, do you know somebody that's part of the organization, and how much money can you give them? And it's disheartening. It's frustrating when you think about this, of the amount of money that goes into these dark money groups, that it fuels poor candidates. It fuels people that don't understand what's happening in these communities, or it's supporting candidates in safe districts that don't need additional funding. And so, like you said, I mean, this has been a complaint for the Democratic Party for a long time,
you know,
that not only one does it not listen to local leaders in these communities on how they can better recruit new candidates, and even when they talk about it, like I was up at Jason Crow the other day, was talking about how hey, we need to be recruiting people who are known in their community for something else and just so happen to be Democrats. And, because that's what's missing. I'll be honest, I'm really nervous about 2026 for the Democratic Party, because everyone's like, oh, well, it's a shoo-in. How can we not win seats? Donald Trump is polling at like 30%. It's like, well, yeah, but the Democrats are polling at 20. So don't think that this is a shoo-in. This is more than ever as a party. We really need to reassess where we're at. And of course, I can't control what happens outside of El Paso County, but I'm certainly doing my best to leverage, every bit of resource I have to get out in front of voters and start with trust. And that's, I think it's missing from a lot of places. And as I have all these phone calls with folks, that's what I hear so often is a lot of unaffiliated voters that have just recently left the Democratic Party. I've even had voters that were Democrats last cycle and have switched to Republican because they're that fed up. Which is bucking a trend, but nevertheless, something that I think we have to pay attention to, especially in El Paso County, where 50% of the elected are unaffiliated voters. And so how do we appeal to those folks? How do we go back to what is at the core of the Democratic message? And how does that play into how we bring back a lot of these voters that have left the Democratic Party because of a loss of trust? And I'll tell you, again, I lay that blame soundly on the feet of the DC consultant class that thinks they can just come into a district out of nowhere and win it based on, talking points that they've tested in survey
Philadelphia.
groups. Yeah, in survey groups that aren't reflective of our electorate.
Yeah. Right.
And or even worse, it's tested among strong Democrats that are, of course, an important constituency, but in a district where you have a minority of registered Democrats, to win, you have to be recruiting from and engaging independent and even moderate Republican voters. And, like I said, I know in our district, I've seen some things that are starting to suggest that there's some folks in the in the party in DC. The good news is I think some people in DC are paying attention to the district. The bad news is they're not listening to what's happening in the district, and they're doing the exact same thing that's, really caused us to lose the House in 2024. And the reason that we're in the mess is, in some cases, I think Democrats have to take responsibility for their own incompetence of, hey, we lost Republicans did not win in 2024. The Democrats lost because they left behind a bunch of voters. They refused to engage voters on issues that were important to them. And they did. And here locally, they didn't understand the issues that were important to voters. And so I am excited for the event on the 22nd, because I do think that, being a second-time candidate, being someone that's been so engaged in the community, people see that. And I love it. I love when I go places now and people are like, dude, I see you everywhere. Like, when do you sleep? But that's, to me, that's the job. The job is not to sit in the El Paso Club and rub elbows with people that, aren't connected to the community behind closed doors. But the people that are out there doing the hard work in this community, I get it. And I see it every day. And it was funny. I did not get a chance to get to city council this week. And I know people listen to this at different times, but this is, August 12th that we're talking. But this morning, city council actually voted to provide some additional funding through UC Health at Mount Carmel to support the Next Chapter program, which was a pilot program launched to support mental health care, PTSD care for veterans and military service members in the community. So it's good to see the city is making those investments. And I like I said, unfortunately, I was not in the room when this happened, so I don't know. I know the city is operating on is financially in rough spot. So I don't know where the money came from, but I do know that they are making that investment here locally. And so hopefully we're able to see some additional resources come out of the Next Chapter program, which I am familiar with. And it is a model program that hopefully gets replicated, not just in the state, but really nationwide.
Okay. Since you mentioned veterans and mental health, how's the reception been among the veterans towards you?
I would say generally good. Like any population, I think folks have, you have a strong diversity of people in the veteran population. The advantage of where I come from, I think, in this space is, one, people know me as being someone connected with Veterans Affairs first and a Democrat second. And so I think, again, there's a level of trust that's built out, is where many people in the veteran community don't necessarily know me as someone that's a politician, but they know me as that nonprofit leader that's been engaged with a number of different things for years now. And, most recently, of course, the job that I hold now has me working with, veteran small business owners. And so really understanding those issues, which is an important constituency. And I talked to, again, going back to being critical of the Democratic Party, I think we forget sometimes, we talk about business as business, and it's like, well, there's a big difference here what we're talking about. Small business owners are not the same as major corporations. And, when we talk about small business owners, these are working class Americans, and we do need to be able to support them. We need to be the party of Main Street. Let the Republicans, as they clearly have demonstrated, that they are not the party of Main Street. They are not the party of working class Americans, and they are not the party of small business. And that's a constituency, again, I think the Democrats tend to ignore. And it's an area that I've been able to build a lot of inroads off of. And again, people see that as, it's not Joe the politician, it's Joe, hey, he's the veteran small business guy. Everyone's going to talk to him. And, that will really come into play, especially in the general, where, again, establishing that trust first and demonstrating what I'm able to accomplish, not as an elected official, and how that would translate into decision-making in office as well. And I think I've said it 100 times in this podcast, right? We're the sum of the people that we surround ourselves with. And, people like to always say, what are the issues that are important? What are this? What is this? It's like, well, it's an important question. But the better question is, when you have to make a decision, who are the people that are around you that are going to influence that decision? And I think that's where that lack of trust happens. That's where we see, Doug Lamborn did not surround himself with local leaders. Jeff Crank, no one has seen him in a year. So, who are the people that they surround themselves when they have to make these decisions? And I go back to all those folks that will see me out. They're like, man, I see you everywhere. Well, those are the people I surround myself with. Regular people in this community that genuinely want to see us thrive so that our kids and our grandkids can grow up here and have successful lives.
Well, I know that Congress has been on recess, an early recess, and Jeff Crank is radio silent. Haven't heard a peep, no emails, no nothing. And
I really miss my Crank It Up newsletter. I look forward to that every Friday.
Oh, yeah, something to really bad. I mean, But I mean, the man doesn't want the job. Let's put it in that perspective. He doesn't want the job. He's just sitting there filling space.
He wants the paycheck.
He wants the paycheck. He wants the $1 million a year.
And the nice little fancy pin they give you too. You get a pin.
Right. But the thing of it is we know he doesn't represent the veterans, the active duty, but he'll go talk to the sheriff and the police chief.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of good that does. I mean, he's not talking to the people, and especially the veteran community.
Right.
Because, I mean, when's the last time you saw him at Mount Carmel?
I haven't seen him there. The only time I've seen Jeff since we were on the debate stage together was I saw him at the street breakfast, and his staff was quite quick to usher him away from people like me that were out there, talking to folks. Normal people.
So, what do we do to get the Dems off their ass?
Well, I think it comes down to, again, early action. And, for me, it's, how can we get people engaged with the campaign? And there's a number of volunteer opportunities that we're looking to launch, and that's part of this formal launch campaign. So what you'll see after the 22nd event, we'll start to schedule town halls. We'll start to do, what we're kind of calling like walkabouts. And so one of the things that we're talking about, specifically with the small business community, how can we better engage with them? And so sometimes that just literally means hey, let's take a walk down Tejon and pop into some of these businesses and say, hey, here's who I am. What's going on?
Yeah.
What are the challenges that you face here? Because when you walk downtown, we're seeing more and more, businesses that are really struggling to keep open. And I think all of us want to see a vibrant downtown. So how do we do that? How do we support those business owners? How do we? And one of the things that's come up a lot in conversations with people is the challenges of hey, it's great that the 2C went through. It's great that we're seeing improvements to roads finally. But there's a lot of businesses that are struggling because when the roads are shut down in front of it, we're seeing this up on Dublin Boulevard now. These people, these businesses are seeing declining foot traffic and they can't absorb it. I spoke to a small business owner just the other day, and her business was involved with importing stuff from overseas, and the tariffs are already crippling her ability to function. And so, these are things that, some of them are local issues. Some of these are national issues. We talk about the tariffs specifically that are going to have an impact on these small businesses. And which is sad because Colorado Springs is a town that really does thrive on our uniqueness. We thrive not on chain stores and big box stores, but we are a community that really values our identity, and we need strong small businesses to support that identity. But the current administration is not supportive of that. Jeff Crank has not been supportive of that on a number of different issues.
Well, I'll tell you, I get frustrated with the Democratic Party too. And when I talk to the state head of the Democratic Party, I said, sometimes you got to throw the rule book away. You got to break the rules or throw the rule book away and get started early. I said, you don't sit there and start getting behind a candidate 60 days before the election. It's guaranteed loser. And I think in this case, the way the Dem Party is acting, the only thing I can think of is guerrilla campaigning.
Well, another thing that when I talk to party leaders and they ask me for my feedback on things, I said, listen, because one of the concerns I get from donors is, well, we're seeing a crowded field in this CD5 race. I'm like, well, who? Nate, tell me who's running. Like, well, I just hear there's a lot of people running. Well, who? Tell me who they are. And what I tell party leaders is, I said, listen, I get it. You're not supposed to put your finger on the scale. Nobody wants you to do that. But you have to have honest conversations with your candidates or potential candidates. Right. And to sit down and say, hey, we're thrilled that you are putting your name in the hat to run for this race. We're excited that you're doing this. But, your platform, your background, whatever, is not a winning conversation for this, and this could be any race for that matter, right?
Right.
Who are these people? Why, hey, the media coverage of your launch raised some really interesting questions that's probably going to be the narrative around your campaign, and that's not going to allow you to win. How do you if you're in this race and there's no conceivable pathway to victory, then maybe you should consider running down ballot. Maybe you should consider doing something else, because donors want competition is good, but there's a balance that has to be had, and that's where party leaders, I think, can be more helpful to candidates and potential candidates of counseling them in, hey, do you really understand your district? Do you really understand what it's going to take to win in this district? What that's going to look like? And I think those conversations aren't happening because sometimes you have people that really just want to be nice, and they want to be the party that's welcoming and open and this and that and all these things. And we do want to be that. But there's a difference between being kind and being honest. And I think party leaders need to focus on being honest with themselves and with candidates and with donors. And that's not it's not a put a finger on the scale, but it's hey, if you're in party leadership, you should really understand this district. And you should understand it better than most of your candidates because you should be part of it. And I do worry sometimes because I think that And I'll be critical of the local party, right? The local party, my issue with them, I attend a dozen events a week. And if it's not hosted, and I love it, I go to Democratic events, like, hey, what have you been doing? Like, I haven't seen you been doing anything. I was like, I'm at 2 events a day. Yeah. Where are you? And they kind of look at me. I'm like, when when El Paso County Democratic Party hosts an event, I can tell you exactly who's going to be in the room. It's the same 50 people. Wonderful people. I love you all to death. Mm-hmm. But if we're just sitting there in the same room with the same 50 people all the time, we're not promoting the message. We're not engaging new voters. And since the moment I lost the primary now over a year ago, mm-hmm. that has been my strategy. Is I do enjoy going to the Democratic events. I try to make it as many as I can. Mm-hmm. But I spend more of my effort in prioritizing to engagements that aren't typical Democratic Party events. And I'll tell you what's alarming to me is that when I go to other events, I don't see Democrats there. I know they're there, but these are those people that they are community leaders, they're potential donors that are something else first, and not and Democrats somewhere after that. Yeah. And that's that piece of, you got to push out beyond the comfort zone. You got to start to engage people in these areas that you might feel a little uncomfortable. And I don't see that from a lot of other candidates. I don't see that from party leaders. I don't see that from the National Party, which continues to just promote its DC culture and forward the candidates that are going to, line the pockets of our consultant class. And it's a losing ticket. And like you said, you talk about, last cycle, I think I fell into that trap too, of being nice. And I wouldn't say I was dishonest, but maybe I was too nice and not honest enough. And that is certainly, I've shifted that to be like, listen, we can't afford to lose this election. If we lose this election, I can't see us doing 2 more years with Republicans having full control of Washington, D.C. I don't know. I'm sorry. Like, the courts can only hold up for so long before we really start to run into some pretty major issues. And this election is it's too important. And I am not one to be, believe me, and you know me, Gary, I'm not one to be an alarmist. But I really sit back and I look at what's happening and I said, we cannot afford to lose this election, and we cannot afford to have the consultant class mess this up like they messed up 2024.
Well, I tend to agree with you. And what I'm looking at from my cheap seat here, and it is a cheap seat,
it looks very comfortable.
That. I look at what Jeff Crank is doing, and I'll tell you why we hired him, God only knows. Because he hasn't done anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's sitting on the same committee that Lamborn sat on, and Lamborn did nothing for the veterans community or the active duty community.
He was a cemetery. We got a cemetery. I know, and I do know the history about that, so I know he did not have a big hand in that. But that was his claim.
That's his claim.
Yep.
But the 2 gentlemen that started the cemetery back in the early 90s, they're gone now.
Yep.
And Lamborn taking credit for it is total, in my book, BS.
Yep.
And that's the same with Crank. He'll take credit for other people's work. And I mean, I know that during the campaign last year, he was bragging about, privatizing military housing.
Yep.
I would not hang my hat on that one if I were he. But he did, because of the problems that they've had with privatized military housing, like cockroaches leaking, bad wiring, just unsafe conditions, mold, everything like that. And I wrote a letter to the editor when the ND was working. I said, the simple solution to the housing problem at Fort Carson is really simple. You get that contractor in there and say, we're terminating the contract for lack of performance. Give us your badge, tell your people to turn in their badges, and get your butts off this base. And then you can explain to your boss why you got kicked off the base. And I said, that is the way it should be done.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I wouldn't take credit for privatizing housing on the bases at all. That is just total,
Well, and I think it's an important conversation too, right? So go back to my Donald Trump has an approval rating of 30%, but Democrats are 20%. And this is the challenge that I think we face, which is in many instances, you have these voters that are looking at the Republican Party and they're saying, this is nonsense. Like, this does not represent my interests. But then at the same time, Democrats haven't given them a convincing reason to vote Democratic. And so it really is, in many voters' minds, it becomes a lesser of two evils. And quite honestly, Crank and Lamborn, were in office for so long because, they're really, with exceptions, there wasn't ever really a candidate that was put in front of voters to say, this is a better option. And so they voted for Lamborn's just going to sit there. He's not going to do anything. So I'll take the guy that's not going to do anything versus this person that I don't necessarily trust. And I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know where they're coming from, but I don't trust them. And so I'm going to vote for the guy that's going to sit on his ass and take a paycheck and not actually do anything. And I think that's where again, the consultant class misses the mark on this, is that, these aren't necessarily single issue voters. These are not necessarily, it's not necessarily a binary choice for them. And there's been a number of articles that have come out in the past couple months, again, that kind of highlight this dilemma of people that sit there and say, well, I actually can recognize that Donald Trump is acting in opposition to my self-interest, but I think he's still doing better than a Democrat would. And that's a really scary thing to take on when you realize that, and it's not like this is not lack of intelligence. When you actually listen to these voters and listen to them talk, you're like, I understand. I get it. I get what I don't agree with you, but I get it, because you do need Democratic candidates that can speak to these issues that are important to them. And that model is there. When we go back to the core of where the Democratic Party should be, is how are we engaging with organized labor? How are we talking to those folks? Because that's where you start there and then you build out. Because when we're talking about issues that are important to organized labor, to our working and middle class voters, talk to them first and then build out. And that's where that comes from. If the Democratic Party truly is a Big Tent party that we want to be, then that center pole is organized labor. And when I talk to labor leaders locally, they say the same thing. Republicans don't talk to us, and the Democrats, they talk about us, but they also don't show up to us. They won't listen to us. They're not engaging with our people the way we need them to. And it's a lost opportunity that we need to go back to and start there. And once we start doing that and present that case, and there's plenty of data to support it, which again, how the consultant class has not figured this one out yet is besides me, because all the economic data is there. All the case is already laid out for us in the numbers and I've talked through those numbers 100 times in this podcast. But go back and have that conversation with these voters to say, hey, here's why this party benefits you. Here's what this party is going to be able to do for you that is aligned with your values, right? The Republican Party is not all about American values. They're about rich people values. Should we even get into the Epstein case and talk about the fact that this is, a president that has said that he wants to get rapists and murderers into jail and out of this country, and yet has just put one of the most well-known pedophiles in the country into a minimum security prison. This is not what any of us want. And and I hate it. It pisses me off when Republicans say, "Oh, Clinton was also on the." Well, if Clinton messed with kids, he should go to jail too.
Well, what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Democrats have got a communication problem, number one.
Yep.
And number two is they're afraid to communicate.
Yep.
They don't want to communicate day-to-day stuff. They want to communicate with this idealistic pomp and circumstance thing that means absolutely nothing to people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was just watching a lady on the internet yesterday. She's a farmer in Texas, wheat farmer. They're losing their farm because of Trump. Yep. Because number one, thanks to Mr. S for brains, Elon Musk, their business was with USAID.
Yep.
Okay, $55 million worth of sales to that farmer. Now he's going into bankruptcy because all of his markets are gone.
Yep.
And the Democrats should be communicating with that farmer. They voted for Trump 3 times. They should be there on their front porch having coffee saying, I think we can do better.
Yep.
But I don't see that conversation happening.
It's not. It is not. And it's nationally, I mean, on a much broader scale, I mean, I wish I could influence that. But locally, again, that's where it goes back to, listen, I'm sorry, if you're going to come into this race and, self-fund with $1 million check to yourself and think that you're going to be able to connect with people from your, multi-million-dollar mansion in the Broadmoor, I'm sorry, it's not a winning discussion. It's not a winning ticket. If you really want to understand what's happening in this community, spend a day with me. It's just, and it is. It's everything from, talking about, the issues that are impacting Section 8 housing, both the funding issues as well as the literal legal issues of the people that are in these spaces and what they're dealing with. Talk about food insecurity, and looking at the folks that are struggling with food instability and what that actually looks like in practice. Talking about the homelessness issue and what's working, what isn't working, and why isn't it working. These are things that you can't answer, from the proverbial, pedestal. This is something you got to be down on the ground and seeing. And it's one of the reasons that I ran in the first place was, having dealt with policymakers at all levels and realizing that too many politicians just want to show up for the photo op and that's it, as opposed to actually spending the time on the ground and seeing what's happening firsthand and talking to the folks that are responsible for that policy and asking good questions of them. And then how does that translate to policy at every level? And that's, again, when I talk unions, I'm not just talking about pipe fitters and steam fitters and the construction unions. These are the teachers unions. These are the government workers unions, the police unions, the border patrol union.
Right.
These are all organizations that these are the people that are doing it. And we don't listen to them. Nobody does. And if you really want to fix problems, that's where you go. Go to the ground. Don't just take the photo op. Get out there and do it. And, that's where, I've tried to focus my campaign and myself is on those solutions to be so, like I said, hopefully in August of 2027, when I'm on my recess, you're going to find me on the ground in the Mount Carmels of the world, in the Springs rescue missions of the world, in the Springs homeless union spots of the world, to actually see what's really going on and say, okay, tell me, talk to me. I don't see it in Washington, so tell me what's happening. and let's have a conversation around this. And I think that there's a lot of ways that we can do it, a lot of better ways, and that also means engaging with city and county officials as well. And that's part of the thing that I'm most proud of, is that when you look at a county commission and a city council that's dominated by Republicans, every one of them has told me, like, hey, we don't like that you're a Democrat, but you certainly seem like someone we can work with. I was like, well, that's the point. We're supposed to work together. It isn't supposed to be partisan. It's hey, we're all elected for a certain reason, or seek to be elected, because we want to support our community. And if we're chosen to do that, if the voters choose us to do that, then we have an obligation to work together all the time. Because it shouldn't be about Democrat or Republican. It should be about how do we support El Paso County at all levels.
Well, Joe, we did it again. Blew through another 30 minutes of conversation.
Well, there you go.
So,
it's good. It's getting late.
Yeah, I know. It's getting to bedtime here.
It's way past bedtime.
So, Joe, what's the last word or two that you want to throw out there for the folks besides communicate? I want to work with you. Talk to me. I will listen.
Well, yeah. Come out August 22nd, 6 to 8 p.m., Cottonwood Center for the Arts downtown. I'd love to see people there. And Gary, you will appreciate this, because you were the one that highlighted to me that everybody else that does these town halls puts that stupid QR code on there and says, you have to register in order to figure out where this is. No. I'm telling you right now, you don't have to. I'd like you to register so we have an idea for the count, because once you get to a certain level, I got to get the fire marshal involved. Different. That's more of the logistics piece.
You want the fire marshal to get involved.
I do. I want us to be busting out that door, so when Jeff Crank looks at his little window, he sees people out that door and recognizes the fact that he is not doing his job, and that the people in this community recognize that there's somebody that wants that job and can do it much better. So August 22nd, Cottonwood Center for the Arts, 6 to 8 p.m. Come on out. It'll be a good time.
You forgot one thing.
Uh-oh.
Reagan for Congress.
Reagan for Colorado. ReaganForColorado.com is the website. It's Joe Reagan for CD5 on Facebook, Instagram, and other things. Or you can just follow me directly on Facebook. I'm Joseph Reagan on Facebook and LinkedIn. Although my LinkedIn stuff is really focused more on my day-to-day work. Hey, watch look what I'm doing.
And don't forget to take the time to go to YouTube and look up Joe Reagan's conversation.
That's right. We've got these conversations. We get all kinds of stuff. Because, this community needs somebody that actually wants to listen and actually wants to do good.
Okay.
So,
see you later, Joe. Till
thanks,
next
Gary.
time.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye.